Hi, this is Marina from Darkstar Astrology giving you the Mercury Retrograde forecast, which lasts from December the 19th this year to January the 8th next year. It will run from 15 degrees Capricorn back to 28 degrees Sagittarius, and it will station retrograde conjunct Pluto. So this is a very exciting and dramatic period, which is less about the usual travel and communication problems and more about deciphering secret code. There are also two stunning aspect patterns, the cradle and the yod, which are explained in more detail later. Mercury's journey through the three decans should reflect the decans' themes into the news. Mercury is stronger in some decans than others and may not mute or repress the decan's qualities in the way that you might think. Instead, Mercury could make the decan feel hyperreal or surreal and dreamlike. So the three decans that Mercury will go through, and a decan is 10 degrees in length, so it will go through Capricorn decan 2, Capricorn decan 1, and then back to a bit of Sagittarius decan 3. So it starts December the 19th to the 26th with Capricorn decan 2, Mercury retrograde in that. It will hit 2 stars, 1 Vega, which is in Lyra the Harp at 14 Capricorn, and Nunki in the Archer's Hand at 12 Capricorn. You can find out about this in more detail on the website, but for this reading, I won't bother giving you all the dates because it can sound quite boring. But Mercury here is good for giving strength to tough Amazon types and super nannies. It is a no-nonsense position, not a smooth talker, and reserved in speech. However, in its silence, it is as strong as an ox and will support you more than any flowery language can. Mercury here heals and nurses in a very hands-on way. And practical magic is another manifestation of this position. Here is the pagan who works in tune with nature. It is the robust work ethic of a farmhand, and responsibility for children is emphasized here. And that's interesting since we've had so much emphasis on child abuse and paedophilia in the media lately. Also with Mercury in Capricorn too, school teachers or headmasters could be in the news as well. So I don't know if that's related to any of these scandals. But generally, Mercury here has the technical ability to know who to slot into what type of position. So this is a perfect time to be working out those kind of things, these kind of themes. When Mercury is closer to Vega, though, it has more of an artisan bent. So fine craftsmen can use this period to make beautiful, solid objects, which are also functional. So really up until just after Christmas, it's quite an easy Mercury retrograde. Now, this one is a bit different. From December the 27th to January the 4th is Mercury retrograde in Capricorn decan 1. And this is from 0 degrees Capricorn to 10 degrees, not including 10. So during this time, Mercury will cross over faces, and this is the nebula in the Archer's face. The December new moon on the 29th will amplify this because it's actually on faces as well. So this is quite an intense time for mental focus as well. But it can be quite harsh as well, and there can be news of aggression and harsh actions as well. So a penetrating, inquiring Mercury is found here, one that can get to the core of an issue. This will make those touched by this retrograde ruthless in pursuit of the solution to the puzzle. Now, doesn't that sound like a lot of the YouTube investigators looking into Pizzagate? However, it says, continuing to read, however, they may offend many in their quest for the truth, as they won't be very tactful. Forensic detectives can have Mercury here, and also people who like to pull apart quite gruesome subject matters in order to solve a crime. Austin Kopok calls this decan a headless body, which is fitting for the decan's creepy associations. This is especially relevant when child murderer, and Mercury's children, remember, Ian Brady and serial killer Harold Shipman, who was a doctor, had Mercury here. This position suits surgeons as faces is so focused and precise. Mercury here is quite fascinated by the flesh, bones and blood of the human body, so would not balk at a post-mortem. This is exactly the type of Mercury position that would support a really in-depth investigation into the Pizzagate allegations concerning paedophilia among the elite. Currently, investigations are happening in the UK looking at young boys who've been sexually abused in various football clubs. And as I record this, it's actually December the 10th, and Mercury actually is pretty close to faces right now. So these themes are repeated again on December the 28th and then January the 22nd next year. Now, a very important part of the retrograde is when you get the Sun conjunct Mercury retrograde, which is exact, and that's called Kadimi, when it's under 17 minutes. So this is an important window, and it always happens midway through the whole Mercury cycle. This will happen on December the 28th, and it opens a window of wonderfulness where we can stand in the eye of the hurricane, but miraculously come out in one piece. This time is even more potent as the Kadimi falls right on that fixed star faces that I've already talked about. This is the penetrating stare of the archer. Chaos could be swirling around, but you can still maintain poise by focusing on that dristi point, as the yogis say. If you really want to make use of this moment to send a daring message that really hits the mark, for the US it's going to be somewhere between 11 and 2 p.m. and the UK it's going to be about 7 in the evening, and in Australia it'll be the next day at like 6 a.m. in the morning. But if you want the exact times, go to the website because it's got them exactly, and the closer you can do it to the actual time, the more you're guaranteed that it's going to be exactly Kadimi, that magical time. Now on Christmas Day we actually get an aspect pattern called the cradle, and this falls more or less midway again through the retrograde. I think it is also very symbolic of the retrograde pattern as a whole, because the Hubers who came up with this aspect pattern, they say that the cradle is our comfort zone where we feel safe, and Jupiter is now separating from its square with Pluto, and it did do a great job of shining the torch of revelation on the corruption and occultists within the shadow government. So in the 2006 post for December, I wrote, Pluto works like the paedophile who slowly grooms the child so that they think, the child that is, that they deserve or must have asked for the abuse. They, the child, feels that they are responsible for all the evil that goes on in the world. It can be quite scary to let go of an abusive relationship if the abuser has played the role of parent. This is deliberate so that the child doesn't develop strong enough muscles to walk by itself. Then it really does feel like one is being thrown out of the cradle. The top of the cradle, as it's upside down in the chart, is Jupiter opposite the paedophile Persephone stellium of Ceres, Uranus and Eris, all three together. And more about that on the website if you want to explore those themes. Now, from January the 5th to the 12th, 2017, you get Mercury retrograde and direct in Sagittarius decan 3. So that's gone all the way back to 28 Sagittarius. And this is the stinger of the Scorpion. And you can see the theme carries on. Here, Mercury is the undercover info warrior. Thought processes are taken very seriously. Information that is out in the public domain is examined very carefully, but this can also cause fear. In the worst cases, Mercury makes the public become very paranoid and depressed about what they read in all forms of media. People are branded conspiracy theorists and now fake news, that's the latest word, when really they are just obsessed with finding the truth. Mercury here is visionary, but often its realistic, no-frills view of the future is bleak. There are grave warnings about health problems in the future due to pollutants in the environment. The dystopian future is hard to swallow, so messengers are demonized for being doomsayers. The more confident refuse to accept the version of reality that is being sold to them. Traditionally, nitpicking Mercury is not comfortable in broad sweeping Sagittarius. However, it can do very well researching subjects that are metaphysical in nature. Mercury here will love to study ancient mysteries, comparative theology, and astrology. This is a time of dark humor, wicked memes, and acerbic wit. The protective cloak of comedy means taboo topics and anti-mainstream comments are brought to a wider audience. So still in Sagittarius Decan 3, Mercury turns direct. And this will be on 28 Sagittarius. So we get a Mercury direct Yod. So this is one of my favorite aspect patterns. I just love the way that it really does focus attention at the degree that it's pointing at. So it's also known as the finger of God as well. So what is the finger of God pointing at? Well, it directs us to 22 Taurus, which is on the fixed star Capulus. And this is the slaying arm of Perseus the hero. Now, this can be a kind of divine masculine or Viking energy. Negatively, Capulus is the male version of Lilith and can be unrestrained male aggressive sexual energy or a rapist. The other points of the Yod are Black Moon, Lilith conjunct Saturn, which could be satanic, child sex abuse, while stationing Mercury, which does represent children, is also very close by it. So these two together are pointing towards the divine masculine of Perseus. Black Moon, Lilith and Saturn are both conjunct on Ras Al Hague, and this is the main star of Ophiuchus, which is the exiled 13th sign of the zodiac, so-called. Now, there are high influences to this star, but in the context of this whole Mercury retrograde, the media in its death throes and the various paedophile scandals bubbling up, I can only see this one way. Ras Al Hague, according to Vivian Robson, says it gives misfortune through women, perverted tastes and mental depravity. He also says that Ras Al Hague with Saturn is selfish, unpopular, determined, fixed opinions, successful though, somewhat dishonest, domestic disharmony through jealousy. Now, on the other side of this Yod is Jupiter, who is fighting two battles. This is the Pedo-Persephone stellium and Capulus the hero. Jupiter in Libra is trying to balance things. It could be the justice system or simply a return to natural law. Actually, Jupiter is very busy since he's also square Sun conjunct Pluto too. So it seems like a lot of deals and handshakes are going on behind the scenes. Everyone is looking at the 22-degree Taurus moon, while Jupiter at 21 Libra is really pulling the strings. So it's interesting to see which leaders or elites have these degrees prominent in their chart. They will be the big players around January the 8th. The Capulus moon can either be the dragon or the slayer. Everything is upside down in this world, and the heroes can also be demonized. So the summary of this Mercury retrograde then. So at the time of this recording, December the 10th, There has not been any solid, damning evidence on Pizzagate from WikiLeaks. The New Year's Eve revelation I mentioned in the Julian Assange post may give us something more substantial. All the alleged paedophile communications have been written in code, which is very Plutonic. And the retrograde starts with Mercury conjunct Pluto and ends with the Sun conjunct Pluto. So this Mercury retrograde highlights the criminal underworld, underground tunnels, networks, and by the way, the White House is connected to a tunnel, well, a network of tunnels that run under Washington and throughout DC. Also, the other themes of this retrograde are hackers and espionage as well. And so far, no criminal investigators are looking into Pizzagate, and the mainstream media are calling it fake news. Now, notice the word conspiracy has been dropped because it obviously has started to lose its spell. So fake news seems to be the new conspiracy word. But meanwhile, in the UK, The Real News has launched a campaign against child abuse using David Beckham. The smaller nonce fish, and nonce in English is slang for a paedophile, basically. These smaller fish are sacrificed to distract from the actual big fry Satanists in the US. But the Beckham video, I think, is still in bad taste. It's a glamorization, distraction, red herring, vectoring from the real story. And the fact that this video is leering over his body eroticizes the matter as well. So it just shows the true mentality of these ivory tower creatives. Yes, the sorcerers are blatantly telling you what's going on. Believe what you see. Cabal slave David Beckham is literally branded all over. So he's a really good example to hold up for this Mercury retrograde, and the way that the media uses art, and I've been talking about this already on the channel, in a very occult way. I think it's quite disturbing, the video as well, when you look at it, even though people will say it's artistic and it's very powerful. It focuses, or rather it raises awareness of child abuse. Like, it doesn't really, what good does that do? What good does that really do? Let's raise awareness of child abuse by looking at David Beckham's body with tattoos all over it. Yet anyone who really does try and talk about what may really be happening, that's called fake news. And if we really knew, if we could have proof of the elites doing this, the elites is such a dodgy word as well. I don't like using that word because elite is actually usually was a positive thing, something that is elite. But anyway, these are parasites at the top of the system. That's the thing. They are parasites sucking the life out of people lower down in the pyramid. So yeah, they are elite, I guess, because they're at the top of the pyramid, but they are sucking the juice out of everybody that's lower down. So this David Beckham video by the NSPCC, and that actually stands for the National Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Children. But the difficulty is for people to really go higher up the pyramid. You start talking about it and you risk getting banned or censored or losing your livelihood. But yeah, that's okay. You can donate some money to the NSPCC and feel good about yourself. On Virtue Signal on Facebook that you've done that because David Beckham's brought your attention to this cruelty. Whereas it's still going on, and it'll always go on when people are, well, frightened into not talking about it. And people just have to be brave and do it sensibly, I guess, without it being too libelous. So with this Mercury retrograde, I think we will learn how to skillfully steer the discussion towards back to what it's supposed to be about, rather than being steered away from things and going towards red herring stories. And it'll also be about learning to read occult language without getting too dragged down into the mire as well, because it's hard when you start looking into these things not to get really upset, not to get really angry, not to get pulled into misinformation, because there's plenty of that on the internet as well. And it's a very poignant time, I think, for this Mercury retrograde and for the fixed stars that it also goes over. And the whole period itself, remember, will mean that Mercury goes over these stars and these decans 3 times. So if you have anything between 15 Capricorn and 28 Sagittarius, it will affect you quite strongly. So look to see which houses those are in your chart. And the whole period actually started now from December the 1st. That's when it entered the pre-shadow phase of Mercury retrograde, which just basically means that it's at that time going direct through the same zone that Mercury will retrograde back over. So it kind of backflips. Then the actual post-shadow will end at the end of January the 27th. So this takes us into the inauguration as well. And with all the scaremongering about something could happen before then, will Trump get assassinated? God knows. Or could something unexpected happen, because the whole election cycle right from the beginning has been so unexpected. It's been so upside down. So yeah, lots of things, anything can happen. And Mercury retrograde on top of that, well, Mercury is the trickster, and he can flip things around just to wind people up. And it's all about what's fake, what's real. And it's hard to know during this whole period. But we will have to rely on our intuition, because that's what Mercury is all about too. It's being able to sense things and know when you're being lied to. And one of the key themes in general with Mercury retrograde is that you often can't trust your logical brain. You can't trust the left brain rational side, and therefore you have to rely more on the intuition side and just really tune into your body, because you can't really trust the mind. But it's also a good time to rewire your brain as well. So during this time, we can think differently. We can maybe listen to different media than we normally do, and lay down new neural pathways that can be more liberating, because we don't want to be, the whole point with Mercury direct in our normal lives is that we have a program in our head. It serves us kind of well, but if it hasn't been serving us well, we have to think of going back and resetting things. So it is a resetting period. It's a kind of, it's a reboot for the brain. All right then. Yeah, I think that sums it up. All right then. All the best. Bye-bye.